And there's an old man sitting, looking sadly out of his window, and it just had one headline saying, Eric hasn't spoken to anyone for two weeks. And I was like, and I thought, and I just went, that is effective marketing.
So what I wanted to talk about today was a couple of things, and one was around creativity and the way we think about creativity at Strategic, and then leaning into that and following on from that is our approach to the way we think about the creation of copy for the clients we have and the channels that we run. And I guess what the reason I've been thinking about this a lot is we've been talking a lot about different platforms and the emergence of technology, and we're obviously a digital agency that deals in digital strategy, but actually there is a common and core theme to everything we do, is that we create marketing for clients, and marketing must have a level of creativity within it. And what I wanted to touch on today was stepping outside of whether it's search or email or whatever it might be, but actually digging into how, when we get a client and when we have a brief or a marketing proposition to create, where do we start and how do we go about it? So I was gonna ask you first of all, where do you start?
Where do I start?
Yeah.
The first principles is always focusing on the audience and what their pressing issue actually is. And focusing on that before you really get to address the client and what their kind of angle on themselves is. Because in the end, you always have to couch. This is what here's me trying to edit myself as I speak. But it's a thing about, you have to kind of, you have to encourage the client to actually see what they're offering in context of what the client, what their target audience needs. A lot of the time, they'll be quite aware of it. But most of the time, they will always want to put their own opinions or own feelings or trumpet their own skills or whatever first. And that's going to be their first urgency. And you have to find a way to get around that and ask other questions about what do your audience really like? What do your clients really like? What do they love about what you do? Yeah. What questions do they always ask you? As well as where they live or whatever like that. But it's always going to be about those key questions about what the clients need most, what the kind of their mindset is when they're looking or searching or reading about or trying to find a solution to their problem or trying to find the client. And then you can go, well, what do they love about the service you provide? And that kind of often triggers loads of good responses. And then you can say, well, what do you love about the service you provide? And that also usually brings up a load of interesting answers. I like just asking questions, basically.
Do you find?
He's just doing a monologue.
Do you find businesses are resistant to that, or do you find that it is a relatively new step to think exclusively in the terms of customer versus product and service?
Sorry, do you think the client could?
My question is, and it's a bit of a loaded question.
Do they feel awkward about it?
Do you find that, okay, so here's our start point, right? Tell me about your customers, tell me what they love about your product. Yeah. Do you find that actually where their safe point is to talk about their products or services and who they are, and it's a challenge to then actually talk about who your customers are, what they want and why they work?
Actually, I'd say it's a relief to a lot of them.
Okay.
Just my own personal experience, when I've asked these questions, they've actually lightened up.
Okay.
And you get more, they've suddenly said more. I've walked out of meetings, actually with 2 or 3 years ago with a Strategiq clients actually, and the guy I was with, the account manager, would turn to me, that's the most I've heard such and such talk about anything. And it's like, that's the key thing, is that they do actually relax because they feel like they feel a burden to talk about their products and their services. And once you get away from that, it does lighten the atmosphere and it relieves them of that burden. And they actually like talking about what they love about their job and what clients love about what they do. and it lightens it up. The only time I've had resistance, I used to ask a question, I used to ask loads of questions and finish on one that says, oh, if you were a car or a high street brand, what would you be? And the answer to that question is a really, really deep key indicator to how they see themselves and their brand, and what their brand really is, and what it should be, and how you can. And that is, honestly, I don't mean to over-egg this, but it has actually been really insightful. And there was one time, there's only been one time where there was resistance to that. I mean, he'd been resistant throughout most of the questions, and you think, this guy is hiding something. And you think, And I answered that question. He said, oh, I don't really want to compare myself to anything like that, blah, blah, blah. You're just trying to make me compare. I went, fine, mate, I'm no pressure. Let's not pursue it. And I just wrapped it up and off we went. And it was obvious to me he had a bad business. It was obvious he had no confidence in his business. It's obvious he didn't like being judged. He didn't like comparing himself to other people. He just wanted to do his own thing, not have anyone bother him. And I went and checked the Google reviews. Lo and behold, there's loads of complaints on the Google reviews. There's lots of issues there. And I thought that was a sign that he knew it. He knew he was a bit shifty and he knew he had something to hide. But most of the time, people, when you ask questions like that, it lightens them up. Because you're not pressuring them about their products and stuff like that, then you get what you need about how to talk about them and how it's always quite key to their brand. I mean, a lot of people don't see copywriting as being part of the brand work, but in fact, to me, you have to know about the things to do with the audience and the character of the company before you can actually really start nailing those headlines and the body copy and the conversion copy on websites and stuff like that.
So if it's as easy as, okay, let's talk about your customers. Let's talk about why they love you and why they work with you. What do you think we do? What do you think we get wrong? And what do you think creates? Because you see it a lot, and not just that, not us necessarily, but what do you think business get wrong? Because the majority of marketing that we see is talking about products, services, features, functions. Why do we then, if we're all clear and we all understand and we all believe truly that the customer is at the heart of everything we say and do, where do we go wrong in taking that principle and then creating marketing that actually then moves towards a much safer world of features, functions, products?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head by using the word safe. It always, we get it wrong when you think there's accepted, what's the word? Accepted wisdom. You think, that's the way we should talk about something. Yeah. That's the way we should organise that the content. Yeah. Of course, that's the kind of way we should structure an email or structure a campaign.
Okay.
But a lot of the times it's to do with the process. People think there's a set process for something or there's a set way of talking about something.
So we're bound by tropes and we're bound by best practice. We're bound by we're preconditioned. Is that what you're saying? We're preconditioned to even though we are creative and we are customer led, we're actually bound by a number of invisible forces that direct us down a safe.
Well, so those invisible forces are human feelings of inadequacy or whatever, or imposter syndrome, or wanting to be liked. Actually, that's what I'm trying to say. It's that human thing. I want everyone to like this. I want them to like this. So, in order to, you feel that if you take a risk on something, oh my God, what if they don't like it? Oh my God. When in fact, if you play it safe, no one will like it. Whereas some people might like it, but it won't excite people. And attract attention, but in the way of trying something different. Do you think?
I mean, I often think about, and it took me a long time to arrive at this conclusion. But actually, in whatever I write or anything I create, I need to accept that if I do it well, there'll be half who like it and half who hate it.
That's true.
There is a necessity to choose a particular avenue and to delight one area at the expense of not displeasing or just alienating. Do you think that's?
I think I think we both know that if you try to please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody.
Yeah.
and everyone just sees it as being vanilla, and they won't feel attracted to your brand or drawn to your brand. Whereas if you say, actually, I'm going to go for that 25% of the market with a specific message that's going to appeal to them and resonate with their needs and make them go, God, yeah, that's exactly what I want. At the expense of the other 75%, you'll make more money.
Yeah.
Because if you try to appeal to everybody and nobody really goes for it because it's too vanilla, you've made no money. If you appeal to 25% of the people and a significant portion of those go for it, you've made money. That's the long and short of it, really.
So in essence, it's about being bold.
Yeah.
So how do you do something that is, where are your lines? Where are your limits in doing something that is
There are no limits.
There are no limits.
There's no limits, but I never see any limits. But you can go beyond any limit, but you can always pull back.
Okay.
It's very difficult to push forward from a boring standpoint.
Yeah.
It's far easier to go far further than you should have done and go, oh, that's a bit too much, and then to pull that back. Because you'll still end up with something that's interesting. There's something else I was going to say there. No, it doesn't matter. But it's that thing of, you can think, that was it. It's presenting options. I mean,
okay.
A lot of the time, you can present, as long as you've got this, your armoury sorted out, so that you can say, yeah, look, okay, here's the safe option, here's a bonkers option, and here's an option that's actually taking elements of that bonkers option, wheeling it back so that it's still more interesting than the safe option, but will appeal to that audience for those reasons. And then you can go, yeah, actually we found something here. Or you can just break out of the mold entirely. A lot of the time you can just, it's just simply often a case of just thinking again. That's the thing, like you think once and you've got a safe option, think again and you can have an interesting option a lot of the time. And a lot of times just thinking outside the box, you can just sit back and go, Christ, let's just grab something out of the air that is going to resonate with people anyway, whatever, and that will attract attention. And it could be a song, or it could be an item of the news, or it could be a character from something or other, or it could be something from a TV show. But when you start referencing things, popular culture in certain ways, you can bring that into something. Sorry, I've gone off on a tangent here.
No.
But going back to that thing, it's just about being safe. A lot of people are safe just because they feel they don't want to offend anyone. And I think you have to drop that fear of offending people, because in the end you won't offend them. You just actually, what foundation are those fears on? Probably none. People are more broad-minded than we give them credit for, and more intelligent than we give them credit for. And so you can actually, the more you play with it, the more you're putting over the sense of fun and putting over a sense of interest and a sense of something that they want to belong to. Right? If you keep playing it safe, like what did I say earlier? One man's what was it? The accepted wisdom, or one man's accepted wisdom, or what was it? Best practices. One man's best practices is another person's cookie cutter technique. Because there's a time where people, as soon as you start to think, oh, this is the accepted best practice, and it suddenly becomes like you must adhere to the accepted best practice. But once you keep doing that again and again, it just becomes a cookie cutter template or a technique. And there's nothing interesting in that.
Do you think we lock ourselves down then? You think we work so hard to go, right, here's the best way of doing a particular thing, right? Here's the best way of approaching this. Here's how we have seen success historically, right? That's generally what we base our best practices on. Then are you saying there is a need to have an understanding of what's worked historically, but there is also a need to think much more deliberately forwards and much more openly in how we approach the way we talk to customers and how we approach the messaging we're delivering, that may look backwards against what's worked, but actually shouldn't be bound by that.
Yes, I think that's probably putting it exactly right. He says getting out of a comment. But the thing is, I think one has to, it's always worth making your work informed by what's worked before. It's It's a matter of always finding ways to inject that with something, an exciting element, or something that's going to, and that entails just always re-looking at it again. Because you might have a tactic or a technique that's worked before in the past, and brilliant. You probably could keep wheeling that out, but eventually the public are going to get bored with that, and it won't work again. What worked in the past might not work again, and you have to throw a bomb in it and blow it up, or just kick it a bit and try something different, because you will find engagement increases, because people are going, what? And it surprises them. And if you surprise someone, then you've got their attention, and they want to find out what was that about.
Do you think we allow enough time as an industry? Do you think we allow enough time to actually be that creative, or do you think that we work in such an intense, fast-paced industry that there is almost a necessity or an inability to take the time? Because you've used that phrase a lot. You need to think again, think again, and the John Cleese quote of time and time and time in order to be creative. Do you think we do ourselves as an industry, we do ourselves a disservice by talking about being fast-paced?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a ball and chain around our ankles.
Yeah.
By boasting how fast-paced we are.
Yeah.
It's like you've gone and you crippled yourself.
Yeah.
By saying we're so fast-paced. Oh yes. And I've been guilty of it myself, where I've thought I've brought the baggage to the job and gone, oh blimey, I have to do everything very quickly here and fit in as much material as I can into the time allocated.
And what do you think?
And the work does suffer.
What do you think the end? Yeah. What do you think the end result is of that?
Very shallow campaigns, very shallow content, very shallow ideas, and the audiences who see the results of those ideas and work, are not engaged very long. You have to put in, it's an equal proportion. So the amount of thought you put into something, the amount of ideas you have to develop what you might want to say about anything, is in direct proportion to the amount of attention that someone who's reading it is going to give it. That is I can't possibly go and find some. This is another conversation. I can't quite possibly go and find the data on this, because it's all instinctive and anecdotal. But this is another whole conversation about we only do things because they're measurable. And so therefore, something that isn't measurable, like creativity, suffers because you can't measure it. And the only measurement is in sales. It's like, how much more sales can you generate? Or is sales actually a direct coefficient with attention and engagement? Creating sales is a craft almost of itself within the whole marketing creative.
It's an interesting perspective.
Work.
Yeah. So you're saying is that the time you invest into the creative and the marketing that you create is directly proportional to the attention you garner.
Yeah.
Sales are then a function of that engagement, but not the absolute and end result.
Depends what you wanted as an end result. If you just wanted engagement, then well done, you're engaged. You could put an attractive person. You could blow something up. You could make someone surprised. But if you haven't followed that up with effective messaging that's going to make people go, Jesus, I need that. There's a really interesting analogy with I can't remember who it was now. But basically, the whole thing of if someone reads your copy and says, you phrased that really well, and I'm really engaged by that, that's really wonderful. You've failed because they thought it was really nicely written and stuff, and they really, whatever. But if they read that and go, Jesus, am I in that much trouble? Then you've won. You have the whole thing about marketing is you have to be that window. You're not the thing itself. You are the window that makes someone looking at it go, wow, I'm in that much trouble, I really need that. Or you can go, do something that says the equivalent of, what was it? Headline equivalent. So like you have to have something like that to do something that much trouble, or the headline equivalent of who wants more ice cream? You know, anyone else for ice cream? You have to have a headline that encourages the emotions that the reader feels when someone says anyone else for ice cream.
So if it hasn't driven an emotion, it hasn't driven an action. If someone's had the time to go, that's really beautifully written, Doug. I really love what you did there. That was it. Then really you've completely missed the point. Yeah. That's a wonderful analogy. What was the phrase? Who wants more ice cream?
Oh, that's the second thing is like you have to generate that emotion someone feels when someone asks them or someone puts up a hand and says, who wants more ice cream? And you have to have a headline that creates the same result, the same effects within someone's body. This is what I said to Imogen the other day. It's like, it's down to emotions. I don't want to, Imogen's quite new to a lot of stuff, and what she created was quite safe, shall we say. That's the nature of the beast. She's still got years ahead to learn these things. And I said, no, paint pictures. Be specific about what problems people are. The reader who's reading that will have a specific problem, a specific issue. If you state that, they'll be nodding along, and they'll nod to the next line, and they'll nod down to the next line, and then when you say, click through here, and your problems will be solved, they'll go, yeah, okay then. And that's how it works. And it's about creating the emotional thing at the start, The most emotional thing I read recently was, it was a printed flyer, came through my door at home, and it was a picture of an old man. It was for a charity, maybe to do with home help or to do with assisting elderly people in their homes and stuff like that. And there's an old man sitting, looking sadly out of his window, and it just had one headline saying, Eric hasn't spoken to anyone for two weeks. And I was like, and I thought, and I just went, that is effective marketing. Yeah. I wanted to turn over and read what they were talking about. And that's what we need to do more, is not be afraid to use emotions to make people want to read next. You have to use emotions to engage people and excite them and make them feel something. They've come up to your product, to your service, and now they're feeling something. They're feeling, oh, wow, that was interesting. Or, yeah, I want more ice cream. They're feeling those things. And if you're just saying, hey, come and see our fast-paced agency, we're really fast. We can get things done really quickly for you, and it looks really, really good. They go, oh, that sounds kind of okay, but whatever. Whereas if you say, mate, your business will be shot to shreds. Or we put a picture of a bloke with a hard hat on and some high-vis stuff saying, tomorrow he's going to be down the job centre because he didn't get his marketing right. Or something like that. Then
So
or you could put a bunch of blokes in a van saying, tomorrow they're going to be down the job centre because their boss didn't get his marketing right. And something like that. Then but you have to know who you're targeting. This goes back to it's all about the audience. So people say, oh, but not everyone's going to appreciate that. And you think, well, I don't care about everyone. I just care about a guy who's got money who wants to spend it on that service and has that problem that we're going to solve. So you have to be really aware of that.
If there's one or two things that we need to impart to our clients and to the teams that create these marketing campaigns, what are the one or two things they need to think about fundamentally over and above everything else?
It's always about the audience. You have to totally know who you're talking to. And I know we talk a lot about personas and stuff like that, and it's my opinion, and I'm sorry guys, that they're too complicated. And it's great. It's like the Einstein quote. Give me the simplicity on the other side of complexity. I'm not interested in the simplicity before complexity. I'm interested in the simplicity on the other side of complexity. So we've made it complex already. We need to find the simple end to that, and have that thumbnail of a persona that you can just you could laminate it or stick it to the side of your monitor. Say, I'm talking to Judy today. She loves this, hates this, really needs that, and we're solving it by doing that. And if you had those key points about what they love, what they hate, what their big problem is, and how we're solving it. And if you just have that knowledge in your head, you'll know how to angle what you're approaching when you write or even design something, and you'll know that will inform your decisions when it comes to creating anything. And I think I've digressed, but it's that attention to audience, the attention to the target, that person you want to speak to, that person you want to make move. You want to move them. You need them to change trajectory, and also to they have to know that your option is better than your competitors. Well, you have to give them a reason for switching from their current option, or they have to know that what you're talking about, you have to have related enough to their situation for them to know that you understand them. And as soon as someone trusts you because because they think you have understood their needs, that's when you've got them. And we need to do more about simplifying, well, not simplifying, but just demystifying it. At the moment, it feels like a bit of a mystical process. It feels like it's overly complex, and it's seen as being a kind of almost like a course module in a very big degree course on marketing, when actually we could, by asking a few key questions, you can easily narrow down who you're going to be talking to and how, and then that taking forward should inform the brand, should inform the fonts, the color scheme, and the message, as well as the messaging that you're going to say, because messaging comes from all sorts of angles, and you don't always have to be. The creativity comes in spotting the message and identifying the right message for the right people at the right time, as they always say. But it's that thing of, you can't do anything until you know who you're talking to, and then you have to talk to them like you're sitting with them at a bar most of the time, and being their mate, rather than trying to impress them with your shiny process or incredible speed and stuff like that.
And then I think coming back to your previous subject about giving it the time it needs to breathe, right?
Yeah,
so understand who you're talking to, understand the emotions that drive them around whatever it is you're trying to, the problems you're trying to address, and then giving it the time it needs to come up with and clarify those core points.
It is really important, because there's been a number of occasions where we'll have had a certain short amount of time to come up with some punchy stuff, and we've come up with some punchy stuff. But then 2 days later, I've thought, oh, what about that? And it's just come up in my head. But the moment's gone. It's already gone to print, or it's been signed off. And you just think, oh, it's too late now. But maybe we can use that later on. And maybe you could, but it depends on, then you're at a different stage in campaign creation and stuff like that. But it's that time is a big element, and just allowing a bit longer for gestation and relaxing into it. If you're tense when you're trying to create stuff, you end up with creating stuff that's passable and usable and can be quite acute. It may have resorted to formulas and templates and best practice rather than trying anything different. And therefore, it won't be quite as incisive or as effective as it maybe could have been. But then if you allow, say, look, actually, we're going to go think about this. We're going to do an ideation process like for an hour today, like we do usually quick. Yep. But we don't actually come up with anything. We can come up with some ideas by the end of it, but we're going to come back to this in 2 days. And if you had any other ideas in that intermediate time, because your brain would have been mashing it around and thinking it about, then we might end up having some different ideas and something more interesting. And it'll be the difference between coming out of a meeting with glum faces, having been berated by the client for not having creative enough ideas because they're just totally not impressed with what you've done, and coming out of a meeting with big smiling faces because the client is actually singing the song that you were referencing in the advert in their office.